welcome to the EFN Presents review for Season 4, Episode 11, Three's a Crowd. I'm your host, Ramble, and joining me today from EFN News are Reldan.
Heyo.
And Joltspark.
What's up, everyone?
Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having us.
What he said.
Yeah. So in this episode, we encountered two characters that we haven't seen for quite some time, Princess, Cadance, and Discord. What did you guys think of their presence in the episode, and just the episode in general?
I'm quite pleased to see Cadance come back again. I am of the opinion that she's a character that's been a bit, I think, underutilized since her introduction. I know that she was brought into the show as kind of a, hey, let's have a pretty pink princess alicorn character, but I don't know, over the past couple seasons, she's really grown on me, and I like seeing her. And I mean, Discord's always just a delight. I mean, John Delancey, Q, all of that, it makes for a wonderful episode, I think, no matter what.
Yeah, going off of what Reldan just said, you want to know more about Princess Cadance because she really hasn't had an episode where you get to see her really interact with the rest of the characters on just that standard level. And then for Discord, you don't know what he's going to do. So it's always just exciting to hear, oh, there's a Discord episode coming up. And in this case, I felt that he definitely put out some twists and spins to the episode that I definitely didn't see coming. So that was great.
I agree that Cadance is one of those characters that I didn't really notice her absence, but she has a role that I guess a lot of the other characters can't fill, and that her and Twilight have a past. Well, their interactions in the show are different from Twilight's other friends that she sees all the time, that she shares superpowers with, that you can't have, in a way, those same down-to-earth episodes. And also, like they mentioned, they point out, the fate of Equestria generally has hung in the balance when they've met each other. So this is almost the first time you're really seeing them just try to be friends.
Yeah, I think kind of going off of that, in some ways, Cadance almost fills in a role. I mean, she's an alicorn. She's been an alicorn for quite some time. She's a ruler of her own empire. In some ways, she's almost at like a Celestia or a Luna level in terms of kind of her stature and her standing within the equestrian society. But at the same token, unlike Celestia or unlike Luna, she does seem like a more down-to-earth, you could go out to a festival or, have some drinks with her type of a pony. And so that's a completely different relationship. She can fill a role that I don't see, say, Celestia filling in terms of being an approachable character that you seriously could be like, oh, she's just kind of hanging out with the main cast of characters and they're just all good friends.
Yeah, with Celestia is a deity. She's the god of the world, or one of the gods of the world. I think it's one of those things of sometimes you have to be a figurehead, which in the season premiere, Twilight learns that when Celestia disappears and everyone's looking to her to fill that role. Whereas Cadance and Twilight as a princess is the fact that you can be in a position of responsibility or authority, but still be human.
I definitely think that was established when Princess Cadance was first introduced in the Season 2 finale. And just seeing her, the first thing you see is full Twilight's full sitter, and just seeing her interact with her in such a down-to-earth, hey, I can go out and do these kind of things with you. And it's just, within that first part of the episode, you can see the close bond they share, and you really didn't have to think about, oh, she's this impressive alicorn now. You just get this mindset of, no, she's more important in the story as being a closer peer to Twilight.
Yeah. Well, I guess before we dig too deep into Discord, we need to get the other characters out of the way. The episode needs to get the other characters out of the way. In fact, I think we timed it. It's, almost 10 minutes before we actually get the Discord and Twilight and Cadance plot going. So what did you think of, I guess, the departure or the interaction with the other characters leading up to the Discord Twilight Cadance subplot?
Well, I may be a bit biased. I did enjoy how Rainbow Dash pretty much just went with the whole I'm out of here plan and zipped off, because that's the one way of getting rid of Rainbow Dash that totally makes sense to me, is that she would just totally, I guess, bail, because she's like, yeah, not into doing this, so I'm just going to go away for now.
Oh, right after the loyalty episode?
Well, she proved her loyalty, so I mean, she doesn't have to do it every single episode.
She proved it when it matters, but not when she wants to.
Yeah, she's reached her loyalty quota, I guess. Oh, we also have Fluttershy with the opening mentions her. She's going off to see the breezies, those magical critters. And did they mention where it is?
I think it's the equestrian preserve for rare creatures, but it's not mentioned as to where exactly that is.
Okay, and that's, of course, being the setup for episode 16, It Ain't Easy Being Breezies, but certainly required, I guess, to get her out of there, because, I mean, her absence is really what the entire episode hinges on, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd say so. It's pretty much required because there's no conceivable way that her character would leave Discord while he's sick. I mean, even if he's just feigning sickness, but it's just not in her nature to not want to be there, basically taking care of him the entire time. I mean, we saw that back in, Birds of a Feather with Philomena, that Fluttershy just has this incredibly caring nature and wants to make anything that's sick become better. So she pretty much couldn't know that Discord was in town and ill for the entire episode to work.
Or his plan, I guess, is he's obviously timed his whole little scheme around these events as well, but Pinky is another one. This has been brought up in season 4, that Pinky is different than we've seen her in previous seasons. I mentioned it before that in the first season you have Pinky with a picnic basket. She'll open the picnic basket and balloons come out and the basket floats away. That was Pinky back then. Twitchy tail, everything somewhat reserved. And now she's flipping out over patio furniture and assaulting people and breaking down doors. Granted, with the people of the show, they can do what they want with the character, but I've heard this described, and I'm starting to agree with them, that they're almost undermining her character. We've had an entire episode built up around Pinky learning not to act like this.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. And inside my written review, I put an entire section kind of devoted to what I consider to be the trend to make or to display Pinkie Pie as the Pinkie Pie as idiot character, which I really don't understand, because if you go back into the first couple seasons, what we've established with Pinkie Pie is that she's actually incredibly smart, and she's usually quite aware of everything that's going on around her. She just doesn't always necessarily reflect that, or sometimes she may act in a silly way because she finds it to be fun, but it's not because she's actually dumb. And what you see, I think, in some of the episodes this season is it really kind of blurs the line between, is she just acting in a completely silly way because for some reason she's finding humor out of that, or she thinks she's entertaining her friends, or, I mean, in some cases it's like, no, she does seem like she's just being dumb for the sake of being dumb. And I think that's really kind of selling her character short.
Yeah, well, in the Parasprite episode, Pinky was the only one that really had a complete picture of what was going on. Pinky has been acutely aware of her situation in the past, but didn't always deal with it the way that she does here. That's true.
Yeah, she works in mysterious ways, but she definitely knows when is the time to act responsibly. And to kind of transition from that season 1 episode, one of my favorite Pinky episodes was Baby Cakes, where she clearly shows that she knows how to be responsible. Well, she learns how to be responsible in the process of taking care of the Cake Twins, and in doing so, she really shows how acutely aware she can be. And really, she just dedicates all this time that she's been assigned, and she pulls off her job really well.
Yeah, I mean, in the premiere, we had all the ponies are searching through the library. The Everfree Forest is attacking Ponyville. Everyone's very worried. It's clearly a let's get serious situation. And, she's coloring in a coloring book. And based upon what I would have assumed of her character, I think she knows that this is more of a let's get serious time. So things like that just strike me as just being odd. I mean, in fact, they seem off for her character. So yeah, I mean, that's stuff like that. I mean, when they characterize her in that way, it just kind of irks me, because it's not the same kind of lovable, clever Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck type of character that I really kind of enjoyed from the first seasons.
That's a really good example because I remember like just a few seconds before, she's the first one, as soon as Twilight crashes, well, teleports into her own library home, that Pinky's the first one to say, hey, I'm not sure if you're aware, but this is what's happening right now. And then the rest of the main six join in describing what they think is going on.
She has her moments, but this season it does seem like they've bumped up her silliness, I guess is a way to call that.
I don't know. It to me, it goes back to, like, in Return of Harmony, Discord made a very good point, or the entire point behind her character was that there's a difference between when everybody's laughing with you versus when everybody's laughing at you. And at that point, it seemed like clear that Pinky's goal was to have everyone be laughing with her instead of at her. But this season, it seems like they're using her almost to be like the butt of jokes rather than being the person who's setting up the jokes. So to some degree, it feels backwards to me that with the way that she's being used for humor.
And that she's becoming the character she didn't want to be when confronted with that accusation by Discord. So there's definitely some inconsistencies, I guess, here. But in terms of, I guess, consistent character, we probably should be getting on to Discord in this episode. So random occurrences, I guess, always happen to follow Discord. We see a good little sprinkling of those when he's at the train station and he's sneezing or generally being sick. What we have the floating house and lots of nice little background things, right? That just the characters, I guess, have accepted as normal around Discord.
Oh yeah, I particularly liked the lamppost that tilted its cap and walked off. That was a pretty good gag.
Yeah.
I just thought it was random when, as well as when Discord's just blowing at his handkerchiefs or when he's just sneezing in general. I remember that one house just floating in the background. I'm like, well, that's I'm sorry for whoever lives in that house.
That's a bit of, I guess, the humor between how they're doing Discord and how they were doing Pinky. Pinky jumps through the door, it lands on people, and it's like, oh my god, you guys, patio furniture. It's not subtle. Discord's humor was subtle, and it's the juxtaposition of these bizarre occurrences with the mundane reactions to of the main six that I think make those funny. If the characters were starting to react to the suddenly animated lamppost, I don't think it would be funny. But maybe that's just me.
No, I think you're pretty spot on with that. It's clear that the humor with what Discord is doing is just based around just how incredibly commonplace everyone seems to think it is.
Yeah, I definitely agree that subtle humor is underrated, as people seem to not think, or people do seem to think that it's not as effective as, hey, we're gonna put this right in front of you and we're gonna hope you laugh. And it's just striking to me how sometimes the smallest things really, if you think about it long enough, then things can be hilarious. And it's just those tiny minor changes that really adjust the whole mood of the situation.
So ultimately with this episode, it revolves around Discord being sick and the main six needing to take care of him, and ultimately Twilight and Cadance needing to take care of him. But in the end, it ends up that he's faking it, which I think there's some hints to that at the beginning. He's too weak to lift a spoon, but he immediately uproots a tree after that. But he has some valid points, I think, in his explanation, where Fluttershy has been his pen pal, and he hasn't really gotten anything else, letters from the main six. He hasn't exchanged letters. They haven't really done things that friends do. It seems they have more of an armistice than a friendship. What are your guys' thoughts on Discord's argument being valid for his actions, I guess, his justification in this episode?
Well, I definitely think that Discord may be the only pony or person in all of Equestria that Twilight has not written a letter to.
That's probably, yes.
But okay, so my thought with Discord, and this is something that I have been kind of wondering about since the premiere, because if you remember back to the premiere, Discord's role in that, he ended up being helpful. Although, depending upon how you look at it, he doesn't come across as seeming like he's being helpful, but he was the one in the premiere that basically got Twilight to rejoin her friends in the forest. And that really was what needed to happen for basically that entire situation to resolve. And I thought that was kind of strange because it seemed, why would he have done that? And here again, one thing I found very interesting was that he claims that he was, kind of, in addition to testing Twilight's friendship with him, that he was also kind of maniacally trying to ruin her special day with Cadance. But one of the things I thought was very strange about how he went about doing that was that back in the premiere, one of the arguments he used with Twilight was specifically that an adventure was something that he knew, was something that would build bonds of friendship. And what's he doing in this episode? He's setting up a scenario to basically get Twilight and Cadance alone and going on an adventure together. And the end result of that is it builds up the bond of friendship between them. And I know he kind of acts like, that wasn't what he was intending, but part of me thinks, maybe that is exactly what he was intending all along. But from there, it's like, well, why would he be doing that? And that's where it gets a little bit more interesting. But I do strongly feel that what ended up happening in this episode was exactly what he intended to have happen.
Yeah, Discord's motivations, I think, are, let's just say, impossible to pin down. Because, like you mentioned in the premiere, he's the one that gets Twilight to go back to her friends, which is exactly what they needed. But he does it in an evil way. As she's walking off, he's acting evil, and there's nobody watching him do that. The same thing with this. I mean, you could say, well, he was trying to set them up on this adventure that would strengthen their friendship, but he's disappointed when it doesn't work out. When their day isn't ruined, and just by his nature, I guess you could say he's hard to pin down. But it seems that too often he's playing the system. He's saying, well, I'm your friend, so you need to wait on me hand and foot to my every whim, which is not what sort of the intention is. If your friend is sick, there's a difference between taking care of them and becoming their servant. And it just seems like he does that a lot, and that goes back to him saying they're friends, and so they need to treat him like a friend, but he is going to push that to the absolute limit.
I definitely agree with that. And going back to when you're asking about Discord trying to convince the rest of the main six without Fluttershy being there to help him, he really does it in a way that he challenges their beliefs in what friendship is. And by using his perspective of what friendship is, he really wants to see what their reactions are. And I think he does it in a way that makes you think, well, couldn't they at least try to help him? And actually, I found it something I would have somewhat wanted was with just Rarity and Applejack being left there with Discord. I would have liked to have seen an actual minute or so, like actually trying to see their attempts at trying to take care of Discord, because even though I know the episode focused on Twilight, I think it would have been a good juxtaposition to see how Discord was treating them as opposed to how he acts in front of Twilight.
Yeah, it sort of the story is pushed in the direction it needs to go, and it doesn't, for purposes of time, I guess, because if we were to have more time with Applejack and Rarity, then we have to cut something else, and it comes down to what in the episode is less important than that. It's a tough call, I think, but definitely it would have been interesting to see, because being treated on by Applejack and Rarity isn't part of his plan, so I guess to see how he treats them would be interesting, because he's definitely pushing them. That Applejack's expression and whatnot, they know they're kind of being played, but nobody challenges him either. And that's something I don't know if we're going to see later on in another episode, because you think that one of them would call him out on what he's doing.
Well, to some degree, I almost feel like that's kind of what Rainbow Dash did, where she basically kept trying to imply that what Discord really ought to just do is go home and leave them alone. And then when he basically decided that he just wasn't going to do that, she's like, well, I'm not going to play this game anymore. And she up and left. To me, that's kind of her way of handling that kind of a situation, that she's just like, she's not interested in sitting there and getting played.
Unfortunately, she abandons her friends, though. I do agree that she's not going to play his game. That's what it comes down to. So I guess there's some justification for her abandoning her friends, I guess.
I don't know. I think in terms of what Discord's doing, I feel like he may be setting the ponies up for something. And I do think that he's going to be tied into the finale. I mean, he clearly has a history with the Tree of Harmony. He very well may know more about what's going on with all of this and the box and everything than, Celestia and Luna or really anyone else. So I look at anything he's doing and I'm thinking there's got to be an ulterior motivation behind what he's trying to accomplish. And I think it's going to tie into the season arc.
Well, you've seen in the premiere, like, he plays the long game. He's happy being in stone for 1,000 years, although it was longer than he expected, because he knew that eventually his plan, with the seeds in the tree would work. And he does seem like the character he's Machiavellian. He seems like one step ahead of everybody, and he's very quick with words and whatnot, which I guess would lead into this song, because it is certainly hard to follow. It is quick paced. There's a lot going on. So I guess, what did you guys think of Discord's song here?
I definitely felt that it was a great way to show how Discord is trying to convince Twilight and Cadance that he really badly needs their help, in the same way that it's a great way of showing that Twilight and Cadance are just going to be fed up with what Discord is trying to get them to do, because his demands just keep piling up, and he brings them to his crazy world and just tries to see what they're going to do about helping him.
Yeah, I mean, I think the song was a really good way to kind of expedite the episode, because it very rapidly sets up the idea that there's no way Twilight and Cadance are going to be able to put up with dealing with Discord. So it gave everyone a very strong reason to kind of move into the next step, which was getting them to basically travel to the edge of Equestria and come up with a cure, as opposed to, trying to play this whole, like, let's cater to his whims and nurse him back to health kind of game.
Advancing the story between him being cared for and him demanding all this stuff, I guess it does exactly that. They're not trying to help him anymore. They're saying, okay, what is the fastest way to get you off our backs? Which involves, of course, leading to some unknown edge of Equestria.
And the question as to what exactly is all that land that seems to be beyond that edge of Equestria. It seems like that would have been a really cool bit of world building if they had been like, oh, that's where Griffin territory is, or, something along those lines. But I guess maybe we'll find that out later. One of the things that I did like about the Discord song was it gave the writers a way to pack a ton of pop culture references into this episode and do it in such a way where it doesn't come across as, I've heard folks, argue about, are they pandering? Are they doing this? Are they doing that? But it's Discord. So you can get away with doing that. You can make, all sorts of Harry Potter, Star Wars, pretty much. I mean, anything you can think of. I mean, everything is fair game when Discord's there. It doesn't really matter. So it's a really cool way to kind of make those little nods to just the pop culture references that I think a lot of the fans of the show enjoy, without it seeming like, they're just going way over the top and getting into pandering territory.
Absolutely. Discord's powers, and like someone was kind of commenting, especially with his blue color, he sort of seemed like the genie from Aladdin in this episode, which I think is one of the reasons people were comparing this song to some of the songs from Aladdin with the genie. But there were a lot of the references in this episode were fairly adult references too, which I guess was like Aladdin. A lot of the references that the genie was making were things the parents would catch, but not the children watching the movie, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's clearly kind of pointing back to you ain't never had a friend like me. And in Discord's case, that's entirely true. I think that's a very, very, very significant point is, it's like, hey, let's try, this whole friend thing, but this is basically what it's going to be my friend.
Yeah. Or some of the other references. Some of the ones, obviously, we had Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. We had, there are a number in the song. What were some of the ones you'd caught?
I mean, definitely holding the glass up near the end was a pretty clear reference back to the Star Wars theatrical poster.
Yes. I guess the end we had Risky Business, where he's he's exuberant, that Twilight went through with his almost challenge, I guess, as it were, to travel to make him better. We had Flashdance in the song too, didn't we, with the water?
Oh yeah,
that was Flashdance, right?
Yeah, pulling the chain and then like leaning backwards and having just the water come crashing down.
I'm pretty sure a lot of kids haven't seen that movie.
I mean, Harry Potter probably would be one of the more recent of references that we saw with, I mean, that was a pretty clear reference too, with the wizard outfits and the glasses and everything.
Oh yeah, and yeah, that's definitely one that I guess more the target demographic would be familiar with. Someone actually pointed this one out to me too, that the, I guess, Golden Chariot, Trixie had a Golden Chariot. There's something about villains in this show and Golden Chariots, I don't know.
Well, I think his chariot reminds me of, I'd have to actually go back and look, but wasn't that Xerxes' completely crazy, massive golden chariot thing from 300?
I don't know, but someone had mentioned in Star Trek Q's judge's seat, I think. Oh, gee. Okay, now I can see where the 300 thing is coming from. Or maybe just all giant chairs look the same. I think it's that all giant chairs look the same. Who knows? Well, that chair shows up pretty late. It's basically at, I guess, the climax of the episode, and interesting climax to the episode it is. It kind of comes out of nowhere with the flower and the battle and all that, and this part of the episode bugged me because there's no build up to it. In Feeling Pinky Keen, there's this sort of Damocles, the doozy that's, you know, Twilight's like the doozy. What's this doozy that's hanging over their head the entire episode? And there's a buildup. You don't know what to expect, but you know something's coming. Here, there is a giant worm and a giant flower. You don't know that the flower's going to be giant. The worm comes out of nowhere. The battle's over quickly. There's no buildup to it. And so I think overall, it just falls flat. What did you guys think of that scene?
I guess another reference that I found on the internet that connected to the flower was, did it remind anyone else of the magic flower in Tangled that was also one of a kind?
Yep.
I haven't seen Tangled.
Well, I know what you're talking about. Like the moment that Discord mentioned this magic cure flower that would be the only thing that could help him. I actually just saw Tangled for the first time last week, and that's really where my mind went the first time that was mentioned. Although, you know, that was back when it was implied that this was a normally sized flower. Of course, you know, once they actually do pull the flower out of the ground, which, I don't know, I am kind of curious that this is like a one-of-a-kind flower. I mean, I don't think they've ever seen anything like that, and they just kind of casual, just like, let's just tear it out of the ground, you know, so that we can, like, cure a flu.
They hate having Discord around that much.
Yeah, they're like, you know, this might be the only one of this flower in all of existence, but compare that to dealing with Discord for, you know, another minute. You know, the flower's got to go. I'm with you on the whole worm battle being random. It took me a little bit to even figure out what was going on when the worm, which I think from Megan's Twitter afterwards, she said was a tassel worm, which actually is something from mythology. So, I don't know, I'm kind of torn. It's like I liked the idea of having Twilight and especially Cadance being able to take a more active role. I just wish that there had been more lead up to that. It just was so sudden. But I mean, at the same token, you know, it's a chance they've injected a bit more mythology into the episode and into the world, which I like. They finally give Cadance the ability to actively fly around and do something, which I like. But at the same token, yeah, I mean, it could have been handled a little bit better, I think.
In the same way, I believe the last weird mythical creature that we've seen is the Kragadil from the season premiere, and that also came out of nowhere because we've seen the Everfree Force for up to that point for 3 whole seasons, and to just now suddenly come across this new creature that we would have thought the main 6 would have encountered before, that also came out of nowhere. And for this tassel worm, I get the sense that because it's a Discord episode, that maybe they were expecting us to expect the unexpected, but this particular instance just really seemed too easy in the sense that, you just grab the flower, take the petals, make some tea, and heal Discord. But you just don't think a giant worm would be near such a rare, valuable flower that it just comes out in a way that is unprecedented.
Well, it's nice that no matter what they come across, there's always something new in the world to see, and I think that that's a good little, whether it's a lesson or not, that's true. No matter what you've seen in the world, there's always something new to encounter and to experience. And speaking of morals, I guess we should get to the lesson of this episode.
Yeah, there's something that I've been critical of some of the season 4 episodes in the past, of having a lesson or a moral that you get to it at the end and they state it, and it's only has at best a tangential connection to the event of the episode. This time around, I actually do think that the moral is well established through the episode, that Twilight definitely is, as she usually does, overthinking this whole visit, and she's putting what they're going to do ahead of who she's going to do it with, and kind of getting her priorities mixed up. And I think it's very clear that that's not really a good idea. And I think it's also something that a lot of people can relate with, because I'm pretty sure we've all been there in that exact situation where you have that, old friend or relative coming in town, and you just feel like you need to do everything you can to make it all perfect. And sometimes you lose sight of, really what the most important part of it really is.
Well, I think a lot of viewers can relate to that, and that's probably because we've seen this exact same lesson in Apple Family Reunion and in the season 1 finale with Best Night Ever, where in both those cases, the characters were more concerned with what was going to be done than who it was being done with, and thinking about what really was important in those situations. I know it's not verbatim, but it really, to me, feels like the same lesson at its core.
Now that you mention it, the episode that I just thought of, linking those 2 episodes that you just mentioned, Pinky Apple Pie, with Applejack just trying her darndest to get her Apple family well-mannered and in a way that Pinky would feel honored to be part of the family. And in that episode, there was more pressure with Pinkie Pie, being a regular character, and Applejack knowing her for what seems to be a good portion of her life. And so it was kind of a similar feeling with that episode.
Well, I think what it comes down to, and like a lot of the episodes we've kind of compared this to, of what the other party would think, right? They've generally been people failing because the character's been focusing on what they believe to be important rather than considering the point of view of the people around them.
Kind of going off of your point of this lesson possibly being something we've seen before, perhaps it being in this season is an opportunity for them to actually get this into the friendship diary instead of just being, a letter to the princess. Mm-hmm. So, there's a good reason for them to, I guess, maybe repeat some of the better lessons of the past, because, they want to chronicle this for future generations.
Well, it's about time for final thoughts and scores. So, Joltspark, do you want to sum up your impression on this episode and give it a rating?
Yeah, sure. So this episode started off kind of slow, with having to find a way to get the main 6 to do their own little side adventures. I'm personally really excited about Fluttershy's adventure with the Breezies, but I think overall the episode was paced really well after we moved to that point of just Princess Twilight, Cadance, and Discord, and just seeing the 3 interact with one another in a very relatable, when not only when you have to deal with that one person who's getting on your last nerve, and you have to still, you want to put on a good impression as well as make it a fun time for the person you're trying to have fun with. So I feel like it definitely does a good job at bringing these elements together, and just seeing Princess Cadance and Discord come back and doing a very fun episode that could definitely lead to many different possibilities in the future. So I'm going to rate this 8.5 glasses of water out of 10.
Reldan.
This episode had Discord, it had Cadance, it had a song, it had adventure. It has a little bit of everything. There were a few missteps, I think. The epic battle sequence could have been led into better. I think Pinkie Pie could have been characterized a bit better. But overall, it had all the elements that, to me, make up a fun episode. And it had a lesson that actually tied back to the episode. So I'm going to have to give this one 7.5 glasses of water. But the glass is half full.
Well, I'm not really sure how I feel about this episode. It does have a lot of really good elements, but there's a lot of the things, like you had mentioned, the build up to the ending just comes out of nowhere. Pinky's character, again, just feels like they're misusing her, and it all adds up to something that's felt really distracting in this episode. And I think that's the problem, is it was a good episode, but it seemed like there was something always distracting me that was pulling me out of completely getting absorbed and going with the episode. And for that, it really hurts, because like you mentioned, there's a good moral to it. There's good character interactions. For me, it was a really big mixed bag. I'm going to have to give it 6 out of 10. Well, that about wraps it up for this week. My guests again were Reldan and Joltspark from Everfree News. Guys, thanks again for joining us.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Thanks for having us.
And tune in next week for a review of Season 4, Episode 12, Pinky Pride.
Pinky Pride indeed.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for watching.